Okay, so we're going to flip the map to show the interior of the cantina. So this is our cantina. We got the entrance and the bar and a closet and the main area and then a stage right here. In this encounter, the PCs rush into the cantina moments ahead of TEEMO the Hutt's Gamorrean goons. They have an opportunity to hide themselves before the goons arrive. As the PCs enter the cantina, read or paraphrase the following aloud. You step down a short flight of stairs into the cantina's shadowy common room. The cool air is a blessed relief from the scorching heat of Tatooine. The Devaronian bartender pauses in his chores to stare at you, his devilish features intimidating. On a stage against the far wall, a Twi'lek woman dances to recorded music. Private booths line the walls, and the cantina floor is scattered with tables and chairs. A few patrons turn in their seats to stare at you. The only other exits you see from the room are what look to be a storage closet in one corner and a doorway behind the Twi'lek dancer. The arched roof above you is supported by thick, heavy struts. You only have a few moments to find a hiding place before TEEMO's thugs arrive. What do you do? So coming down the stairs into the cantina, the first person is the human Posh, the smuggler. Posh's story. It's been a hard run for the smuggler, con man, and rogue, known only as Posh. First, he was ejected from Imperial Flight School for insubordination, which is apparently a fancy word for stealing a shuttle for a quick flight around the planet when bored one day. Then his favorite speeder bike was impounded when he fell behind on his debt payments. Then Posh was arrested for grifting on the streets of Aldera on the planet Alderaan. Then he was transported for hard labor in the spice mines of Kessel, which was apparently some Alderaani noble's way of getting back at Posh for something involving the noble's daughter. Then the transport carrying him to Kessel was attacked by pirates, and Posh was press-ganged into service. Then the pirates were defeated by an Imperial frigate, and Posh was arrested for piracy. Then Alderaan was blown up by the super battle station called the Death Star, and things got really tense. Then Posh was set free by an Imperial officer named Herkin, who explained that Posh now owed him a huge favor. And, by the way, Posh was now going to fly starships for a gentle being named TEEMO the Hutt. Recently, Posh has been flying cargoes for TEEMO in and out of the tiny town of Mos Shuuta on Tatooine. In some ways, it's been the most boring and peaceful 8 weeks of Posh's life. In other ways, he keeps getting shot at by pirates and customs officials and having to do risky landings in remote, dangerous places, so it's terrifying at the same time. On his most recent mission, Posh's ship, a rusty old Getruk 720 light freighter named Auvar, was damaged beyond repair, and he had to be sold off for parts when he finally returned to Mos Shuuta. TEEMO the Hutt was not happy, since the Auvar was technically the Hutt's property. Posh decided it was probably time to leave the Hutt's service, and teamed up with his favorite droid mechanic, 41 Vex, and a lethal Twi'lek bounty hunter named Oskara to make it happen. Despite his long life of misfortune, Posh thinks of himself as lucky, and perhaps he is. After all, if he hadn't been arrested and transported off Alderaan, he might have been there when the Empire blew it up. Posh has a knack for coming through disaster unscathed. He's a really excellent pilot and pretty good at a lot of other things, and has the easygoing nature of one to whom things come easily. So the next person down the steps is Oskara, a Twi'lek. Oskara's story. Ryloth, the home planet of the Twi'leks, is a dry and dusty planet with precious little to offer anyone looking to get rich. In fact, its most valuable, and some would say only valuable, export is the illegal spice called Ryle. Consequently, many of the rich and powerful on Ryloth are smugglers, crime lords, and thugs, sometimes capturing innocent Twi'leks and forcing them to labor in the spice mines. Oskara was always quick, clever, and lucky enough to stay ahead of the press gangs, but her sister Makara was not. When Makara was nabbed by Aqualish thugs, Oskara had to act fast to keep her sister out of the mines. She offered her own unique services to the gang leader instead, claiming to be an experienced bounty hunter. Surprisingly, her first job for the gang went well, and Oscara soon thrived under the tutelage of a veteran hunter named Gax. She was called on to perform more and more duties for the spice mining gang, and as long as she did well, Makara was safe. But then Oscara was loaned out to a Hutt gangster on Tatooine named TEEMO, and then things started to come undone. TEEMO paid her quite well, but in the course of her bounty hunting work for the Hutt, she uncovered a plot against the Ryle mining gang on Ryloth. The Hutt was going to seize their territory, and there would be no more guarantees of safety for Makara. Oscara decided to team up with TEEMO's favorite gladiator, a Wookiee named Lorik, and one of his best pilots, a human named Pash. Alongside her new companions, Oscara has sent a warning to her compatriots on Ryloth and is now fleeing TEEMO's revenge. Oscara seems jaded and cynical at first, having seen much of the worst the galaxy has to offer at a young age. She's careful not to get too attached to anyone or anything. She is a professional bounty hunter and takes a serious approach to her work, focusing on results rather than any emotional considerations. The next character to come down the stairs is 41 Vex. Now, I gotta wonder, I guess this cantina maybe allows droids? I don't know. 41 Vex's story. The droid 41 Vex's programming contains a self-improvement directive, as is only appropriate for a doctor. Just as organic doctors are commonly committed to continuing education to keep their skills sharp and to develop new techniques, so too is 41 Vex dedicated to increasing its skills and mastery of medicine. Unfortunately for 41 Vex, the droid was until recently stationed at a clinic in Mos Eisley on the desert planet of Tatooine, with very few opportunities to improve its skills. 41 Vex spent decades rusting away, patching up blaster burns and broken appendages suffered during brawls and speeder crashes. The droid despaired of ever being able to either access the latest surgery protocols or expanding its knowledge through its learning algorithms. Over the decades, with no memory wipe, 41 Vex developed several quirks in its programming and concluded that the only way to improve its skill as a surgeon and doctor was to purchase its own freedom. To do this, 41 Vex took out a loan from a local moneylender in the service to TEEMO the Hutt. Unfortunately for 41 Vex, TEEMO's promise that the droid would be free to improve its core programming weren't entirely honest. TEEMO even offered to make several hardware and software upgrades available to the droid at the Hutt's palace in Mos Shuuta. When 41 Vex arrived, it was promptly fitted with a restraining bolt and forced to provide medical care to TEEMO's guards and gladiators. Some of the promised upgrades did manifest themselves, however, as TEEMO updated 41 Vex with some maintenance and repair programs. Fortunately for 41 Vex, the droid has struck up dealings with both TEEMO's favorite gladiator, a Wookiee named Lorik, and a hotshot young human pilot named Posh. They're the closest things 41 Vex has to friends on Tatooine. Lorik, of course, is a frequent patient, and 41 Vex has been called upon several times to repair Posh's ship, which gets damaged far more often than one might expect. Recently, 41 Vex aided Lorik's attempts to escape TEEMO by introducing him to Posh. The Wookiee promptly removed 41 Vex's restraining bolt and brought the droid along. So the fourth and final character to come down the steps is the Wookiee Lorik. Lorik's story. The Wookiees of the heavily forested planet Kashyyyk are a proud species with a rich culture and sophisticated technology. Unfortunately, their bestial appearance and inability to speak Basic often leads to the misconception that all Wookiees are little more than savage brutes. A long-standing antagonism between the Wookiees of Kashyyyk and the lizard-like Trandoshans frequently flares up as Trandoshans hunt Wookiees for sport. Lorik's sister and nephew were victims of one of those Trandoshan raiding parties, and both were killed. Lorik vowed to hunt down the Trandoshans responsible and was promptly captured. So began his long career as a gladiator, forced to do battle for the amusements of others. Lowrick eventually achieved such fame that his contract was acquired by a Hutt gangster named TEEMO, and he was brought to Tatooine. TEEMO would periodically send Lowrick into the ring to vanquish gladiators belonging to his business partners as a means of establishing his dominance. From time to time, Lowrick was asked to serve as bodyguard during particularly important business meetings, where his presence would serve as a reminder that TEEMO had many trained killers on the payroll. Recently, Lowrick struck up a friendship with a bounty hunter named Oscara, who also worked for TEEMO the Hutt. Oscara was planning to make a run for it and quit TEEMO's service, and Lowrick offered to help, if Oscara would take him with her. Lowrick also grabbed 41 Vex, the droid medic who patched him up after each fight, and brought the droid along. Lowrick has a great deal of experience with combat, both from his career as a gladiator and his time acting as a warrior on Kashyyyk. He is disciplined and thoughtful by nature, but his experiences of the past few decades have made him somewhat short-tempered. He takes his obligations and his oaths very seriously, and nothing is more important to him than escaping his predicament and getting vengeance for his family. Although Lowrick cannot speak Basic, he understands it quite well, and the other PCs understand his language just as well. All right, cool. So we've got our 4 characters, and they just entered the cantina. So each PC has one chance to hide themselves before the goons come in the front door. Doing so is a skill check, and each PC should make one skill check to determine whether or not the attempt to hide is successful. If a PC simply tries to hide in a booth or under a table or in the shadows of the cantina, then the skill check is a stealth check. But there are other things the PCs may try, such as convince the Twilight Dancing Girl to let the PCs backstage, stepping into the storage closet and jamming the lock, climbing up into the support struts where the extra booze is stored. The extra booze is up there. Getting behind the bar and pretending to be a bartender. Sitting down at the bar as if nothing was wrong, because only a madman would do that. Once each character makes his or her choice, the player should construct a dice pool and roll the skill check. Each hero player will do this one at a time in any order. So let's go ahead and see what we've got. Posh. Let's take a look at what Posh's skills are. Stealth is not great. It's not bad. Pilot, charm, deceit. Charm or deceit. I'm kind of thinking we might try pretending to be the bartender. Okay, so let's construct our dice pool. And this is going to be 1 difficulty. So we're going to add 1 difficulty. And then Posh's deceit is 2 ability and 1 proficiency die. So this is a proficiency die, and it's an upgraded ability die. And the reason why it's that is because this is a cunning, and Posh has 3 in cunning and then 1 rank in deceit, which upgrades one of the die. So let's go ahead and roll and see what we get. Okay, so the difficulty actually came up blank, which is awesome. So we've got success and advantages. So we have 2 success and 4 advantages. That's really interesting. So let me see what... Oh, sweet. Yeah. I'm going to recover those. We've got 2 advantages. Well, we've got a lot of advantage. I'm going to use a couple of those advantage to remove Posh's stress. So Posh is at 0. So that was a success. Posh is going to get behind the... Actually, let's move Posh behind the bar to pretend to be a bartender. Oscara. Coordination agility has 4. And stealth is 4. It could go either way. Ooh, I don't know what Vex is going to do. Vex doesn't have a lot of good skills for this. So I think what Oscara is going to do is... Oscara is going to try to do stealth, I think. So it's going to be 4 ability dice because of her agility 4. So let's go ahead and roll that. So we can take that threat and remove that. And then we've got 1 success and 2 advantages. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use those advantages to get rid of her stress. And so she did manage to get a success. Lorik has a pretty good athletics. So I think what I'm going to do is actually have Lorik attempt to climb up into the rafters. And that's going to be 3 and an upgraded die, a proficiency die. Where would she have hidden in the shadows of the cantina? I think she's gonna go over here in the shadows of that booth. And then Lorik is gonna sort of come over here and climb up into the rafters. Maybe over this area right here. So that was 1 threat, which I've got an advantage. I've got a bazillion successes here, like phenomenal successes. So if I cancel that threat out, I've got 4 successes and 2 advantages. So I'm actually going to remove the strain stress from Lorik as well. And that's perfectly well done as far as Lorik. Now, Vex, unfortunately, man, there is not a lot to do. Oh, we're gonna do mechanics. That's what it is. We're gonna get into the storage closet and lock the door. Try to lock the door behind him. So actually, he is pretty good at that. That's gonna actually be one challenge, 3 ability, and 1 proficiency die. So let's give that a try. Oof. Well, that threat does cancel out, and then I've got 3 successes. So that's plenty in order to actually do that. So Vex has moved into that closet and blocked it off. Excellent. All of the PCs have hidden successfully. So moments after you hide yourself, a small troop of pig-like Gamorreans carrying heavy bone-breaking clubs steps through the door. So there's our 4 Gamorrean guards. These are TEEMO's enforcers. They blink their beady little eyes in the gloom, peering about. Then, seeing nothing of interest, they grunt and whine in their primitive language and turn to go. You know they'll keep looking for you until you take them out. With their back turned, this is the perfect moment to strike.